They buried you alive but forgot. Seeds don't die in the dirt, they rise. My dear chosen ones, let that line sink deep into your spirit. Because today, the world is reeling, not from some scandal, not from some staged spectacle, but from the raw and unfiltered power of your past coming into the light. Your reveal is not just a headline, it is an earthquake. The ground beneath their arrogance has split, and they can no longer stand as steady as they once pretended. Why? Because the identity they mocked, dismissed, or shoved aside has now exploded across their timelines like a supernova, and it's too late for them to stop it. For years, they laughed at shadows of your story. They replayed fragments, whispered rumors, and treated you like a draft version of yourself. They thought your past was a coffin, but here you are, breaking the lid wide open, showing the world that what they thought was your ending was actually the first chapter in a thriller they were too blind to read. Chosen ones, let me ask you this. Isn't it ironic how the very piece of you they swore would disqualify you became the one thing that makes you unforgettable? Isn't it poetic that the skeletons they prayed would haunt you now dance as proof of your survival? Listen carefully. Your reveal is bigger than you. It's a mirror shoved in their faces. It forces them to confront an uncomfortable truth. They underestimated you not because you lacked power, but because they lacked vision. They saw your stillness and called it weakness. They saw your struggle and called it defeat. They saw your silence and called it surrender. But what they never realized is that silence is the sharpest blade, and stillness is the strongest stance. You weren't hiding, you were gathering, you weren't losing, you were learning. And now, when your truth detonates across their screens, it's not just shocking, it's humiliating. Chosen ones, if this message is already shaking something inside you, don't just sit with it, stand with it. Support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel, because every click gives us the strength to keep creating more of this kind of raw, life-changing, and energy-charged content for you. Your support is the fuel that allows us to dig deeper, speak bolder, and bring you the words that remind you exactly who you are and why you can't be stopped. So take a second right now, like, subscribe, and stay locked in, because what's coming next will hit even harder. Think of it this way. Imagine they were watching what they thought was a low-budget pilot, one season, already cancelled in their heads. And now, the same story they abandoned has returned, not just renewed, but dominating like a global franchise breaking box office records. They can't catch up. They can't pretend they knew it all along. The spoilers are everywhere, and the world is binge-watching you. And let's be honest, chosen ones, part of their embarrassment isn't even about you, it's about themselves. Your reveal exposes their blindness. It proves that their so-called insight was nothing more than gossip dressed up as certainty. They thought they were critics. They turned out to be clowns. They thought they were writing your obituary. Instead, they were unknowingly drafting your press release. And that's what stings them most. Here's the fact. The majority of people spend their whole lives running from their past, but not you. You didn't run, you didn't edit, you didn't disguise, you unveiled. And in doing so, you shattered the illusion that your past was a chain. Instead, you revealed it as the launch pad. Think about it. Doesn't that flip the script entirely? All the energy they spent waiting for you to trip was actually wasted because what they thought would break you became the very reason you broke through. Chosen ones, this moment is proof of something greater than their judgment. It's proof that being underestimated is not a curse, it's a crown. You were never ordinary. You were never background noise. You were chosen to walk a path that demanded storms because storms sculpt resilience. You were chosen to endure nights that felt endless because darkness shapes vision. And when the dawn comes, that vision burns so bright that it blinds the same people who once called you invisible. They're gasping now because they're caught between two worlds, the outdated memory of who they thought you were and the undeniable reality of who you've become. Their minds are shattering under the weight of that contrast. They're scrambling to reconcile old snapshots with the living, breathing proof standing before them. And every attempt they make only exposes them further. Because here's the cruel irony: the version of you they dismissed is the very version that built the strength they now envy. Let me pose a question to you. Do you realize the power of that? Do you understand how unstoppable you are when your supposed weakness becomes your weapon? That's why they're shaken. That's why they're embarrassed. That's why their silence now feels louder than their insults ever did. Because your rise has left them speechless, and their old words have aged into proof of how wrong they always were. Chosen ones, let this ignite you. Your reveal isn't just trending, it's teaching. It's teaching the world that perception is fragile, that assumptions are dangerous, and that underestimation is the deadliest mistake anyone can make. Your past identity didn't break you, it broke the system they built to contain you. And now that system is rubble at your feet. So walk forward knowing this. The internet didn't just break because of your reveal, it broke because the truth is louder than the lie. It shattered because authenticity detonates louder than performance. And the minds of your doubters, they're not just shaken, they're shattered beyond repair. And thank you, yes, you, the chosen one. Whether this is your first time here or you've been riding with us through every reveal, your presence is the engine behind everything we do. If this hit you in the gut and you're ready to own the power of your past, smash that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next drop, and drop 77 in the comments if you're ready to turn isolation into your launch pad. Want to go even further? Show extra love with a super thanks. Every bit helps us keep delivering raw, unfiltered, life-changing content that exposes the truth and shatters the noise. Stay locked in, and now let's dive in, step by step. And believe me, chosen ones, if you've been feeling these signs, this is your moment. Silence wasn't surrender, it was how you built your arsenal. They called your quiet cowardice. You call it ammunition. Let them hear the sound of their own mistake. My dear chosen ones, let that line land like a brick through a window. Because what they mistook for your disappearance was you stacking the tools they never thought you'd have. Silence isn't a surrender when it's the antechamber where the chosen prepare. It's not cowardice when it's the workshop where the steel of your character is tempered. They watched you step back and wrote the obituary of your ambition. How petty of them, how short-sighted. Today, the same retreat they celebrated is the very arsenal that just detonated across their timelines. Ask yourself, when they saw you quiet, did you feel small? Did doubt whisper that you'd been boxed in, sidelined, or forgotten? Of course you did. Everyone feels that knot of uncertainty. But listen closely. Those doubts were part of the process. They were the grindstone against which you sharpened. While they were busy shouting into empty rooms, you were learning how to speak with consequence. While they chased clout and applause, you learned endurance. That's the whole point. Silence doesn't mean nothing happened. It means everything necessary happened in private. Picture a blacksmith alone at night. Sparks fly, hammer falls, metal glows. No audience, no likes, no instant applause, just the sound of work. The onlookers call him invisible because they don't see the furnace. They don't see the repeated blows that straighten what was bent. And when morning comes, a blade appears so sharp, it cuts through their assumptions. That blade is you. They'll stagger when they realize every quiet season was a forging season. They thought they had won by watching you withdraw. In reality, they handed you the time to build something they couldn't imagine. They'll say, "Why now? Why show up all at once?" Because timing is a weapon. Preparation loves patience. What looks like delay to the short-sighted is careful calibration to the chosen. You were not stalled, you were being staged. You didn't miss your moment, you were crafting it. And there's an art to arriving when the audience least expects it. The impact multiplies, the disbelief deepens, and the verdict is final. When your name explodes across feeds, it punches holes in their narrative because they prepared their story around your silence. It's uncomfortable for them, and rightly so. Some of you wonder if this feels ruthless. Is it fair to revel in how shocked they are? Hear me, this isn't petty revenge. This is the natural consequence of truth catching up with assumption. The humility of their earlier certainty now reads like arrogance. Their criticism was cheap because it required no risk. You took the risk to disappear from view and do the work. They took the cheap applause and traded depth for sound bites. The pain they feel now is the learning curve they refuse to take. Let that sting be your reminder. Effort outlives opinion. Let's answer the obvious questions that crowd your mind right now. Did I waste time? Number. Time spent repairing your foundation is never wasted. Was I wrong to step back? Number. Retreat without purpose is surrender. Retreat with intent is strategy. What if they never believed me? They believed the story they wanted to believe until you forced them to confront the facts. Facts are stubborn. They don't bend to gossip or rumor. When your past identity resurfaces as evidence of your climb, it doesn't ask permission to be noticed. It simply is. Think about the iceberg. They only saw the tip, so they mocked the visible flaws. They didn't account for the depths below the surface, the mass of work, the pressure, the unseen currents. The reveal exposes the real volume of who you are, and it leaves them off balance because their entire evaluation was surface level. That's their vulnerability. You were building mass underwater, and now when the tide changes, the weight of you tilts the shorelines they stood on. Now imagine someone who measures success purely by noise, likes, applause, quick takes. To them, your silence was defeat. To you, it was a laboratory. You incubated ideas, rehearsed without an audience, failed privately so you could win publicly. You endured closed doors and used those slams as percussion for a rhythm that now commands arenas. They can't mimic that. They can clap loudly in comment sections, but they can't manufacture the humility that only hard seasons teach. Their noise collapses next to your substance. Chosen ones, this is the power of being selected for a purpose bigger than immediate comfort. You were selected to withstand what others won't. You were chosen to trade temporary visibility for permanent capability. That choice isolates you, but isolation is not a punishment, it's training. It's a laboratory where the chosen grow in ways the casual observer can't comprehend. And when your reveal detonates, that isolation becomes your unfair advantage. They laughed because they didn't understand the curriculum. They gasp now because they have to witness the diploma. Here's one final truth to carry as you move forward. Preparation doesn't need an audience, but it does demand discipline. You can either be busy chasing applause or being busy building. Only one of those habits survives scrutiny. Only one becomes legacy. So when your past identity breaks the feed and their minds begin to shatter, know this. What stunned them wasn't luck. It was the summa of all the nights, the unseen practice, the small corrections, the injuries, and the recoveries. They watched you in pieces and assumed the pieces were all there was. They were wrong. Stand in that realization, chosen ones. Let it harden your resolve. You didn't hide, you prepared. You didn't stall, you staged. You didn't fail, you fashioned. Their shock is not your goal. Your goal was always growth, and growth has a way of making noise only when it's fully grown. Now the noise belongs to you. Now the arsenal you built in silence is visible, and every surprised face in the crowd is proof that your preparation was both necessary and inevitable. And with that, hold that tension. Let their disbelief echo in your favor. We're only getting started. Number 1. Silence wasn't hiding. It was weaponized preparation. Silence wasn't surrender. It was how you built your arsenal. They called your quiet cowardice. You call it ammunition. Let them hear the sound of their own mistake. My dear chosen ones, let that line land like a brick through a window, because what they mistook for your disappearance was you stacking the tools they never thought you'd have. Silence isn't a surrender when it's the antechamber where the chosen prepare. It's not cowardice when it's the workshop where the steel of your character is tempered. They watched you step back and wrote the obituary of your ambition. How petty of them, how short-sighted. Today, the same retreat they celebrated is the very arsenal that just detonated across their timelines. Ask yourself, when they saw you quiet, did you feel small? Did doubt whisper that you'd been boxed in, sidelined, or forgotten? Of course you did. Everyone feels that knot of uncertainty. But listen closely. Those doubts were part of the process. They were the grindstone against which you sharpened. While they were busy shouting into empty rooms, you were learning how to speak with consequence. While they chased clout and applause, you learned endurance. That's the whole point. Silence doesn't mean nothing happened. It means everything necessary happened in private. Picture a blacksmith alone at night. Sparks fly, hammer falls, metal glows. No audience, no likes, no instant applause, just the sound of work. The onlookers call him invisible because they don't see the furnace. They don't see the repeated blows that straighten what was bent. And when morning comes, a blade appears so sharp it cuts through their assumptions. That blade is you. They'll stagger when they realize every quiet season was a forging season. They thought they had won by watching you withdraw. In reality, they handed you the time to build something they couldn't imagine. They'll say, why now? Why show up all at once? Because timing is a weapon. Preparation loves patience. What looks like delay to the short-sighted is careful calibration to the chosen. You were not stalled. You were being staged. You didn't miss your moment. You were crafting it. And there's an art to arriving when the audience least expects it. The impact multiplies, the disbelief deepens, and the verdict is final. When your name explodes across feeds, it punches holes in their narrative because they prepared their story around your silence. It's uncomfortable for them, and rightly so. Some of you wonder if this feels ruthless. Is it fair to revel in how shocked they are? Hear me. This isn't petty revenge. This is the natural consequence of truth catching up with assumption. The humility of their earlier certainty now reads like arrogance. Their criticism was cheap because it required no risk. You took the risk to disappear from view and do the work. They took the cheap applause and traded depth for sound bites. The pain they feel now is the learning curve they refused to take. Let that sting be your reminder. Effort outlives opinion. Let's answer the obvious questions that crowd your mind right now. Did I waste time? Number. Time spent repairing your foundation is never wasted. Was I wrong to step back? Number. Retreat without purpose is surrender. Retreat with intent is strategy. What if they never believed me? They believed the story they wanted to believe until you forced them to confront the facts. Facts are stubborn. They don't bend to gossip or rumor. When your past identity resurfaces as evidence of your climb, it doesn't ask permission to be noticed. It simply is. Think about the iceberg. They only saw the tip, so they mocked the visible flaws. They didn't account for the depths below the surface, the mass of work, the pressure, the unseen currents. The reveal exposes the real volume of who you are, and it leaves them off balance because their entire evaluation was surface level. That's their vulnerability. You were building mass underwater, and now when the tide changes, the weight of you tilts the shorelines they stood on. Now imagine someone who measures success purely by noise, likes, applause, quick takes. To them, your silence was defeat. To you, it was a laboratory. You incubated ideas, rehearsed without an audience, failed privately so you could win publicly. You endured closed doors and used those slams as percussion for a rhythm that now commands arenas. They can't mimic that. They can clap loudly in comment sections, but they can't manufacture the humility that only hard seasons teach. Their noise collapses next to your substance. Chosen ones, this is the power of being selected for a purpose bigger than immediate comfort. You were selected to withstand what others won't. You were chosen to trade temporary visibility for permanent capability. That choice isolates you, but isolation is not a punishment. It's training. It's a laboratory where the chosen grow in ways the casual observer can't comprehend. And when your reveal detonates, that isolation becomes your unfair advantage. They laughed because they didn't understand the curriculum. They gasp now because they have to witness the diploma. Here's one final truth to carry as you move forward. Preparation doesn't need an audience, but it does demand discipline. You can either be busy chasing applause or being busy building. Only one of those habits survives scrutiny. Only one becomes legacy. So when your past identity breaks the feed and their minds begin to shatter, know this: what stunned them wasn't luck. It was the summa of all the nights, the unseen practice, the small corrections, the injuries and the recoveries. They watched you in pieces and assumed the pieces were all there was. They were wrong. Stand in that realization, chosen ones. Let it harden your resolve. You didn't hide, you prepared. You didn't stall, you staged. You didn't fail, you fashioned. Their shock is not your goal. Your goal was always growth, and growth has a way of making noise only when it's fully grown. Now the noise belongs to you. Now the arsenal you built in silence is visible, and every surprised face in the crowd is proof that your preparation was both necessary and inevitable. And with that, hold that tension. Let their disbelief echo in your favor. We're only getting started. Number 2, their shallow memories collapsed under your truth. Their memory was a postcard. Your reveal delivered the whole book. They kept your story on a sticky note. You showed up with the encyclopedia. My dear chosen ones, feel that line like a slap and a salute at once. For too long they carried the cheap version of you. A headline, a rumor, a whisper in the right room, and they treated it like gospel. They banked their opinions on snapshots and sound bites, trimming your life down to the smallest, most convenient pieces. But the moment your past identity unfolded in full color, it exposed their memory for what it truly was: shallow, lazy, and painfully incomplete. They thought they knew you because they had the trailer. They hadn't watched the film. Ask yourself, how many times did they act like experts on a life they skimmed? How many mouths declared verdicts based on a rumor they heard over coffee? That's the cruelty of surface-level judgment. It gives people the illusion of knowledge without making them do the hard work of seeing. They prefer the shorthand because real curiosity costs them something: humility, time, and the risk of being wrong. So they chose comfort. They chose gossip. They chose the easy lie. And now that the full account of you is out, it's not just inconvenient for them, it's humiliating. Think about the people who keep a Polaroid in their head and call it the archive. They remember the worst frame, the awkward angle, the one mistake that fit their tidy story. They don't remember the months of rebuilding, the nights of quiet practice, the small acts that add up to transformation. They ignore context because context complicates their narrative. They like villains and heroes because they're easy to slot into the world's scripts. You, chosen ones, never fit into their prefab stories, and that threatened them. It's easier to downgrade a life than to reckon with the idea that a person can reinvent, reclaim, and outgrow every label they pinned on them. Now they're forced to stare at their own poor bookkeeping. Their mental files are messy, their headlines are wrong, and their certainty looks foolish. That sting, the one that tightens their throat, isn't about you, it's about their exposure. You didn't shame them, clarity did. Your reveal didn't make them wrong. It made them admit they were lazy observers. And admitting that you were wrong about someone you judged loudly is a pride-swallowing act most people avoid. That's why their embarrassment is so loud and often so toxic. It's a reaction to being caught behaving small. You might be thinking, should I have corrected them earlier? Should I have explained? Number. That's the brilliance of timing. You weren't obligated to be their teacher. You weren't required to rewrite their assumptions for free. The chosen don't perform for the doubters. They cultivate, then unveil. There's a dignity in letting truth stand on its own timetable. When you stop groveling for validation and instead allow your life to speak, the truth lands harder than any speech you could make. The reveal is the final exam, and you passed without asking for a curve. Let's be practical. Their shallow memory made them dangerous, not because it was false, but because it made them confident. Confident ignorance is the worst kind because it behaves like authority. It judged you, put you in a box, and lent itself to others as fact. But confidence collapses when confronted with evidence. Your full story is evidence. Your past identity, when revealed, doesn't negotiate. It clarifies. It forces people to either update their beliefs or live with the discomfort of being proven wrong. Most choose the latter. Some will adjust. Either way, the moment exposes who was watching well and who was merely watching loudly. Choose how you respond to their discomfort. Chosen ones, don't gloat, don't gash. Let the reveal be the teacher. Your power is in the fact that you never begged for understanding. You let your life be undeniable. That's the kind of authority that rewrites conversations and rewires perceptions. The less you explain, the more their assumptions collapse under the weight of what's true. So when they flinch and scramble to find old gossip to defend their stale memory, don't rush to prove yourself. Stand in the evidence of your life. Let their shallow recall look small next to the volume of your reality. Every confused comment, every repost of an old clip, every stunned reaction is proof that they built their certainty on sand, and now the tide is changing. Hold that truth tight. Their memory never defined you. Their rumors never sized your worth. Your reveal did more than clear your name. It revealed the intellectual laziness of those who pretended to know you. And that, chosen ones, is a powerful, necessary fracture. It separates spectators from witnesses. It forces the world to reckon not with the rumor, but with the whole person. Keep moving. Keep revealing. The book is open now, and everyone who once judged from the cover is being taught how little they actually read. Number 3, the timeline they mocked now mirrors their shame. Their mockery turned into the mirror. They couldn't escape. Laugh at the scar and you'll watch it become the map they use to find you rising. My dear chosen ones, hear me loud and clear. The very jokes they told about you, the punchlines, the whisper campaigns, the casual cruelty have become receipts. Their sneers are now footnotes in the story of your rise. They treated your past like a sitcom clip they could replay for a cheap laugh, never imagining those same frames would become the storyboard for your comeback. That's what makes this so satisfying and shattering at once. Their mockery didn't bury you, it chronicled the exact materials of your rebuild. Think about the arrogance in that for a second. They stepped into the role of critic without a single blueprint, confidently declaring the future of a person they barely understood. They reduced your complexity to a meme, as if a few fragments of your life could define the whole. But what they mocked as weakness, the missed chances, the public failures, the painful exits, was secretly the curriculum of your education. Every stumble taught a lesson. Every closed door taught direction. Every embarrassed moment taught humility and strategic patience. While they were scoring points in gossip, you were scoring wins in the quiet classroom of consequence. You might be asking, how can their ridicule become my advantage? because ridicule ages like milk when truth is the cheese that matures. Their words were brittle, shallow, built to make noise rather than build substance. Time has a way of revealing which is which. Your endurance has turned their sarcasm into evidence. Evidence that they judged you too soon, that they measured you with tools meant for flash and not for foundation. The jokes that once stung now echo as proof of how small their view was. Picture them standing in front of a mirror that only shows last season's highlights. They smugly preen, comfortable in their selective memory. Now imagine that mirror cracking and, to their horror, revealing footage that proves they were wrong all along. The late nights, the practice, the healing. Their faces change when the reflection demands accountability. That shift from smugness to shame is the sound of ignorance colliding with reality. It's loud, it's irreversible. Let me answer the next doubt that nags at you. Should I confront them? Should I prove them wrong face to face? Number. This is not about public feuds or proving anything to the hollow. The most devastating response is silence plus results. Let your life do the arguing. When the record speaks, when your timeline reads like a manual for resilience, confrontation becomes unnecessary and petty. Your reveal is not a trophy you wave at them. It's a fact set down in front of everyone that rewrites their assumptions. There's another layer here that cuts even deeper for them. Their mockery reveals their own fear. People ridicule to feel safer, to create distance between their perceived success and your reality. In that moment of derision, they betray their insecurity. They attack what they can't yet be, and they laugh at what they secretly envy. Your rise exposes that insecurity as fraud. It's a mirror of shame, not because they deserve spectacle, but because they built their identity on the illusion that they could predict and control someone else's fate. Now they see the cost of that arrogance, their credibility. Chosen ones understand the potency of this reversal. You didn't have to manufacture a persona. You didn't edit reality to fit a narrative. You let your history breathe, and in doing so, healed and learned in ways that no influencer can fake. The authenticity of your past now functions like a magnet. It draws respect, it attracts allies, and it reveals the fakeness of those who once mocked you. People respect what's honest and earned. They respect someone who turned pain into practice and embarrassment into expertise. This is why their discomfort is not merely personal, it's cultural. They believed culture could be shaped by sound bites and gestures. But culture bends to conviction and consistency. Your past, once the target of mockery, has rewritten the cultural script around you. The narrative shifted from "here's what we think" to "here's what happened," and the public has a hard time arguing with facts. Their jokes are now archives of their own misjudgment. So lean into the sting of that mirror. Let the memory of their laughter be the fuel that keeps you meticulous, relentless, and discreetly ambitious. Use it not to become bitter, but to become airtight. Stronger craft, clearer strategy, deeper patience. The moment they realize their mockery reads like a prophecy they accidentally fulfilled, that is when their shame becomes public and your dignity becomes undeniable. Remember, your past isn't a scar to hide, it's a script to study. It's not a burden, it's evidence. When the internet lights up and their minds shatter, what they're witnessing is simple arithmetic. The sum of all your hard seasons turned into an unignorable present. Let them stare. Let them rerun the clips they once used to laugh. Each replay only cements the truth. They were wrong, you were ready, and your history is now the reflection that proves it. Number 4, the story they tried to bury became the one that resurrected you. The grave they dug turned into the foundation you rose on. They spent their breath burying you, only to discover they'd been laying bricks for your comeback. Chosen ones, hear this and let it settle like iron. The dirt they heaped on you was never meant to be a tomb. It was the raw material of your reconstruction. They tried to erase you, to brand your past as a liability, to make the world believe your history was disposable. They rewrote headlines, circulated lies, and whispered versions of you so distorted you barely recognized the caricature. Their intention was simple: make the memory of you small enough that the future would forget to look for you. But their scheme had a fatal flaw. They mistook surface disappearance for finality, not realizing real growth happens under pressure, in the dark. Think about the seed under the snow. To the casual eye, it seems like death, cold, inert, defeated by winter. Yet beneath that white silence, the seed is alive with plans. It is folding, arranging, storing energy so that when the thaw comes, it explodes upward. That's what your so-called burial was. They thought they had finished you. They were wrong. While they celebrated, you were busy rooting. Every smear, every cover-up, every narrative meant to shame you pushed your roots deeper. The soil they used to hide you became the bedrock of your comeback. Now they are stunned because your resurrection didn't borrow from anyone. It didn't require a manufactured persona, a trendy cosign, or a sudden pivot to someone else's story. You rose on what was already yours. The chapters they tried to obliterate were the blueprint. Your past, messy, raw, and true, contained the lessons, the scars, the credibility that no contrived reinvention could buy. That authenticity is magnetic. It draws people because it's real, and that truth is what fractured their narrative. You must understand why this cuts them so deep. Their power was never in the dirt. It was in the belief they could control the narrative. When they succeeded at suppressing a name, they felt secure. What they didn't account for was the stubbornness of truth. Lies need maintenance. The cover-ups require constant spinning. But reality accumulates. It gathers momentum until it can't be ignored. Your story did just that. Each attempt to silence you added weight to the eventual reveal. Ironically, their effort to bury you created the conditions that made your comeback impossible to deny. Questions will come. Maybe they already have whispered in your mind. Did they win for a while? Yes, they purchased a moment of illusion. Was it painful? Absolutely. No resurrection comes without wound. Did I lose anything real? You might have lost peace for a season, but you gained the steel of survival. The point is this: short-term victory for them meant long-term ruin for their credibility. They opted for a cheap score and paid with the capacity to read a life. Your rise exposed that transaction. Picture their faces as your past identity spreads across feeds and conversations. First confusion, then realization, then a slow, sinking shame. There's nothing more disorienting to a person invested in erasure than seeing the thing they buried standing taller than ever. Their whispers turn into stammers because they can't reconcile their own handiwork with the outcome. They tried to manufacture a blank space. Instead, they produced a monument. This moment is not about revenge. It's about exposure. It's about the elegant justice of truth revealed in plain sight. Let their embarrassment be a mirror, not to celebrate cruelty, but to mark the accuracy of your path. You didn't need to invent a new image to win. You simply had to let the original file render in high definition. When people finally see the full version, context snaps into place and their assumptions implode. Chosen ones, this is the power of owning your narrative. When they try to bury you, don't panic. Plant. Let the compost of their spite nourish your roots. Use their attempt to erase you as fuel for the version of yourself they refuse to imagine. Grow where they thought you couldn't. Build on the soil they thought would suffocate you. Remember, the same hands that shoved you into the ground also stacked the materials for your ascent. So stand up, not to prove them wrong in petty ways, but to prove yourself right. Your resurrection is not a fluke. It's a structure, designed, deliberate, and durable. And as your past identity floods the feeds and shatters their assumptions, let every shocked face be proof. The story they buried is the story that made you unforgettable. Number 5. Their fake hierarchy shattered the moment you stood tall. You tore down their paper throne. The ladder they climbed was never real. They built a throne from gossip and straw. You brought proof and watched their empire fold. My dear chosen ones, hear this and feel it like a blow. They constructed a kingdom out of assumptions, and they insisted you belonged beneath its dust. For years they stacked invisible rungs between you and them, social signals, tidy narratives, borrowed confidence, and climbed a ladder that existed only in their imagination. They walked their hollow runway of superiority, certain their view was permanent, certain that you were fixed in the frame they'd built for you. Then you revealed the truth, and that paper throne crumpled under the weight of reality. Ask yourself, how many times did they look down and feel taller because you were not performing? How many times did they use your quiet as scaffolding for their ego? It wasn't bravery on their part. It was a cheap elevation, like propping a cracked statue on a pedestal and calling it art. Their confidence depended on keeping you small. That is their strategy. Manufacture an opponent you don't even know you're fighting, then enjoy the illusion of victory when you don't play by their rules. But chosen ones, you never signed up for their script. Think about what real stature requires. It's not noise, it's not a highlight reel stitched together for instant applause. Real stature is substance, things you can't fake in a single frame. It's the hours no one sees, the humility that refuses to bargain integrity for likes, the relentless accumulation of small, unseen wins. While they were busy rehearsing superiority, you were quietly building capacity. They compared their glitter to your foundation, and glitter falls apart when the wind hits it. Your reveal was that wind. They will scramble now because hierarchy is how they feel safe. Admitting they misread you forces them to admit a deeper truth. They had no idea who they were measuring themselves against. That admission vomits pride. Imagine a public square where critics hold loud placards. Now imagine the person they sneered at stepping into the center and shattering their narrative with one undeniable fact: competence. Their echoes turn into whispers, their certainty becomes doubt. And that rupture is deliciously destabilizing for them and liberating for you. You may wonder, is this cruelty? Is there grace in exposing people who were once loud about your perceived limits? Let me answer plainly. This isn't about humiliation for sport. It's about justice for truth. It's about the simple arithmetic of visibility. When you present the unvarnished version of yourself, you remove their ability to profit from ignorance. They invested energy in a lie that flatters them. Your reveal repays that investment with the cold audit of facts. Facts are boring to those who trade in stories, but devastating when they land. Let's face the predictable questions rolling through your mind. Will they hate me for it? Some will. Will they try to rewrite their past words? Most will attempt damage control. Do I owe them comfort? You owe them nothing but honesty and your own forward motion. Their discomfort is the symptom of a worldview that crumbled the second your truth arrived. Their ego will look for excuses. Don't feed it. Let it starve while you continue to grow. Picture a carnival mirror hall where their reflections looked tall and sharp until someone turned on the lights. The illusions melted. That's what happened when your past identity stepped into the open. The warped mirror of their perceived ladder corrected itself, and they had to face the real proportions. They thought they were higher because they were standing on illusions. When those illusions evaporated, their elevation had no purchase. You, on the other hand, were never propped. You were rooted. There's tremendous power in erasing someone's ability to use you as a measuring stick. You silence the cheap expert who judges from memory instead of evidence. You disarm the arrogance that demands proof-free supremacy, and in doing so, you reset the social math. Merit, not rumor. becomes the currency. They tremble because their old economy collapses. You move forward because economies built on competence never go out of style. Chosen ones, internalize this. You didn't merely step up. You obliterated an entire scaffolding of false ranking. That's why their defensiveness looks frantic now. It's not just jealousy, it's existential disorientation. They must rebuild their identity without the scaffold of belittling someone else. That's a hard homework assignment for people who've preferred shortcuts. As you move through this aftermath, don't waste your energy convincing them. Let your presence be the proof. Let their attempts at reputation management reveal themselves as shallow. Keep doing the slow, invisible work that makes their noise irrelevant. Keep letting outcomes speak where words fail. When your life outpaces their narrative, history writes the rest. And remember, tearing down their paper throne was never your aim. Your aim was being undeniable. If they crumble in the process, that's their consequence. Your job is to keep building, to keep expanding the scale they could never measure. You were never meant to fit their ladder because you were born to build new heights. Keep climbing on your terms, chosen ones, because the world now watches differently. And for once, the watching is in your favor. Number 6. They were addicted to your mask and unprepared for your real face. They loved the version they could control. They collapsed when the real you refused to be small. My dear chosen ones, hear that and let it sting. For years they fed on your half-seen self like junkies craving a fix, the safe, manageable image you allowed them to consume. That incomplete version gave them power, permission to judge, license to borrow, and an excuse to stay comfortable while you quietly built what they could never manufacture. They were addicted to the illusion because it served them. And now that the mask is off, the withdrawal is violent. Think about what that addiction looked like. They praised the edits and ignored the edits' cost. They quoted your smallest lines and passed them off as deep insights, then leaned back satisfied as if they'd discovered treasure. They took your ideas, trimmed them to fit their stage, and gave themselves applause while leaving you unpaid in influence and recognition. They envied what they couldn't become, so they domesticated you, reduced you to a caricature that made them feel superior. That mask was their safety blanket. It kept you predictable and them feeling powerful. So why does the reveal hit them harder than any direct attack? Because addiction comes with cognitive failure. Addicts don't want to know they're dependent. If the mask is shattered, then their whole system, the narratives, the superiority, the quiet theft, is exposed. They must face a truth they were never willing to hold before, that the person they minimized was the source of what they silently admired or secretly copied. That contradiction, it's corrosive. It eats at pride, ruins the comfortable myth they told themselves, and forces them to confront their own hypocrisy. You may be asking, chosen ones, did I owe them the fuller truth sooner? Did I play a part in this addiction? Yes and no. Let's be honest. Masks aren't always lies. Sometimes they are protection. You may have shown a fragment to survive a room, to avoid predators, or to buy time. You didn't invent the economy of smallness. It was there before you got there. Choosing what to reveal is a strategic act. Showing less isn't submission. It can be surveillance. It's how the chosen preserve energy and evade unnecessary battles while preparing to win the war. The problem lay not with you, but with them. They weaponized that fragment against you and built a life around being comfortable with an incomplete truth. They'll say things now like, "We always knew there was something." That's the pathetic reflex of people who want credit for intuition they never had. Some will attempt to gaslight, claiming they were supporters. Others will double down on mockery. But their noise is background static next to the evidence of your transformation. The reveal does one thing no argument can do. It replaces rumor with record. What they once whispered in the dark now reads like their own admission of short-sightedness. There's a deeper humiliation here for them. They weren't simply wrong about you, they were complicit. They borrowed from you without acknowledging the debt. They felt entitled to take what you offered while refusing to see the source. That sense of entitlement collapses when the source stands up and takes credit. Suddenly their applause looks like theft, their mimicry looks like projection, and their comfort looks like cowardice. It's a check that arrives with interest. What should you, the chosen ones, do with this moment? Do not gloat. Do not feed the humiliation. Instead, let it be the clarifying moment that separates energy you'll keep from the noise you'll discard. Your reveal is not a revenge tour, it's a reclamation. Reclaim your narrative, set boundaries, and demand the credit you've earned. If people try to latch onto old masks of you, show the face instead. If they're disoriented, let them be. Confusion is a fair reaction to a reality they refuse to see. Remember, the mask you once wore was not a confession. It was context. It protected you from predators, sheltered your process, and preserved your focus. Now, the face you reveal is the result of that protection. It's the full temperament, the unedited voice, the whole strategy. They can't unsee it, and more importantly, they can't unbuild what you built while they were busy worshipping the shallow version. That's the true sting. This moment strips the illusion from everyone watching. It's a lesson for those who would reduce someone to a role convenient to their ego. It is a warning that control is a brittle commodity and that people who try to keep others small often bind themselves to a very fragile power. When the face finally arrives, and it will, the addict collapses because their supply is gone. Stand tall, chosen ones. Your reveal didn't just expose them, it educated them. Your truth is not a threat to the world. It's an invitation for anyone brave enough to look deeper. For the rest, let their discomfort be your confirmation. You were never meant to be the version they wanted to keep. You were meant to be the one who changed the terms of the game. Hold that image. We keep moving, and when the next mask falls, you'll be ready. Number 7. Your survival turned into the evidence they can't swallow. Survival they can't digest. You turned their doubt into your weapon. They built graves with their words, but you planted seeds in the soil and came back with forests. My dear chosen ones, let me tell you why they are choking right now. It's not simply because you revealed your past, it's because you survived it. And not just barely survived. It didn't leave you limping, bitter, or broken the way they predicted. No, you walked through storms that should have destroyed you, and you emerged sharper, calmer, more dangerous than ever. That survival is their nightmare. They can't digest it because it exposes them. It unmasks their excuses. It crushes the comfortable lie they've been hiding behind. That hardship gives them permission to quit. For years they had you marked down as finished. In their eyes, your story was a tragedy sealed in advance. Betrayals? That should have silenced you. Losses? That should have broken your spine. Scars? Those should have kept you locked away in shame. They thought the ending was written and you were too weak to flip the page. But the chosen ones never stay written into someone else's script. You tore through the page and wrote your own ending. Ask yourself, chosen one, how many times did they laugh thinking you were done for? How many times did they rehearse your downfall in whispers, only to now find themselves silenced by your resilience? Their arrogance was built on the assumption that pain paralyzes everyone, but you broke the formula. You weaponized your pain instead of drowning in it. Every betrayal turned into sharpened instinct. Every failure became a lesson carved into your bones. Every scar, visible or not, became proof that you could take a hit and keep moving. They can't copy that. They can't imitate survival that raw and that real. And here's why it humiliates them. Many of them lived through far less than you and still collapsed. They went through lighter storms, smaller betrayals, easier setbacks, and yet they froze. They stayed stuck. They recycled excuses about why they couldn't move forward while you were busy walking through fire and turning it into fuel. That contrast terrifies them because it reveals a truth they've avoided. Effort is the dividing line. You didn't get a lighter load, you didn't get more privilege, you just refused to quit. And now your very existence is a spotlight exposing their inertia. They wanted you weak so they could feel strong. They wanted you broken so they could feel whole. They wanted your story to stay frozen in defeat so theirs would look brighter by comparison. But survival ruined that narrative. Because when you walk into a room having endured what they couldn't even imagine, their false superiority evaporates. Their strength looks like paper, their confidence like glass. Deep down, they know it. Deep down, they know they wouldn't have lasted one round in the storm that shaped you. And that's the part they'll never admit, that your survival robs them of power. Before, they could dangle your past like a weapon. They could sneer at your scars, gossip about your failures, whisper about your pain. But survival took that weapon out of their hands. What once humiliated you now humiliates them. What once was their favorite insult is now your badge of honor. They can't hold it over you anymore because you already carried it through the fire and came out untouched by their judgment. Think about that. What burns them isn't just your rise, it's the fact that every single thing they thought would keep you down became the very proof you're untouchable. You flipped the narrative in real time. You didn't erase your wounds, you displayed them. You didn't bury your mistakes, you turned them into lessons. And every time they look at you now, they're forced to remember that while they're still sitting in the ashes of their own excuses, you built an empire from the same flames. Chosen ones, this is why they're unsettled. Your survival is a mirror they can't stand to look into. It reflects their fragility, their laziness, their wasted years of hiding behind justifications. You didn't just endure, you mastered what should have destroyed you. You didn't just make it through, you made it matter. And every time your story surfaces, their excuses sound smaller, weaker, emptier. So hold your head high. Understand that your survival is not just a private victory, it's a public disruption. It dismantles lies. It embarrasses those who underestimated you. It shakes systems built on arrogance. And above all, it proves this unshakable truth. Nothing they said, nothing they did, nothing you endured was strong enough to bury you. You weren't meant to survive. You were meant to outlast. And now, chosen ones, the fact that you did is the very thing that shatters their minds. Number 8. Every loss they laughed at was actually a seed of your rise. Every loss wasn't a collapse, it was a seed taking root. They cheered at your falls but forgot. Storms don't kill seeds, they water them. My dear chosen ones, let's break this down with clarity sharp enough to cut through the noise. The world thought your setbacks were proof you'd never rise. They pointed at every stumble, every rejection, every season where you seemed to be stuck, and they said, "See? That's the end of them." They catalogued your struggles like trophies, each one a notch on the scoreboard of your supposed failure. They mistook silence for death. They mistook difficulty for defeat. And now their minds are shattering because your past identity reveal exposed the undeniable truth. Those losses were never endings. They were roots. Ask yourself, chosen ones, what is a seed if not buried? What is growth if not hidden beneath soil, unseen, uncelebrated, dismissed as nothing? That's what your losses were, seeds planted in darkness, preparing to break through in ways your doubters could never anticipate. They were mocking what looked like brokenness, blind to the fact that every so-called collapse was silently building the foundation of resilience, foresight, and strategy. You didn't crumble, you rooted deeper. And now the fruits of those roots stand tall, undeniable, humiliating for the ones who thought they had you figured out. Let me paint the picture for you. They threw dirt on you, literally and metaphorically, believing it would smother you. But dirt doesn't only bury, dirt fertilizes. Every dismissal, every rumor, every sarcastic laugh was more soil added to your story. They didn't realize they were participating in your growth. They thought they were burying your potential, but in reality, they were burying a seed. And seeds don't die in the dark. They split open, they transform, they push back against the weight above them until one day the sprout pierces through the ground, unstoppable. That sprout is your reveal. And it's devastating to them because it proves their celebration of your failures was premature, shallow, and foolish. Chosen ones, think about how savage this irony is. The very moments they replayed as your collapse are now the very evidence of your endurance. They laughed when doors slammed on you, but each slam built the patience that makes you untouchable today. They whispered when you were rejected, but rejection sharpened your discernment, so you now know exactly which doors deserve your knock. They smirked when you stumbled, but each stumble taught you balance, grit, and adaptability that no classroom could ever provide. Their mockery has aged into prophecy. The so-called proof of your weakness has become the receipts of your strength. And here's the part that burns them the most. They can't argue with the evidence anymore. Your results are visible. Your resilience is undeniable. They're confronted with the fact that while they were busy laughing, you were busy learning. While they were busy doubting, you were busy building. And now that the fruit of your losses is on full display, their silence is louder than their insults ever were. Their smirks have vanished, replaced with disbelief. Because what they thought would trap you became the very thing that propelled you. You see, chosen ones, ordinary people measure success in straight lines. To them, any detour is failure. But you are not ordinary. You are chosen. And chosen paths are never straight. They zig, they collapse, they rebuild, they root deeper in darkness so they can rise stronger in the light. That's why they couldn't see it. Their perception was surface level, and surface level eyes can't comprehend underground work. They looked at your soil and assumed it was a grave. They didn't know it was a garden. Let me ask you, how many times did you feel like giving up? How many times did the weight of failure convince you it was over? And yet, here you are, not just standing, but thriving. That survival, that transformation, is the part they will never be able to digest, because your reveal proves their arrogance wasn't just cruel, it was blind. They thought they had the final word on your story, but your story didn't end in loss. It began there. Every setback was a seed, every rejection was a root, every broken moment was the blueprint for the empire you're standing in now. This is why your past identity reveal shatters their minds. It exposes not just who you are, but who they failed to recognize. It forces them to confront their inability to see beyond the surface. And humiliation follows, because the proof is undeniable. You were never collapsing. You were cultivating. You were never broken. You were building. And now the garden of your resilience stretches out before them, lush, unstoppable, and undeniable. Chosen ones, hold on to this truth. The losses you endured didn't just prepare you, they crowned you. And every time they look at you now, they'll see the harvest of seeds they thought were dead. That is your victory. That is your weapon. And that is why their minds remain shattered while you stand untouchable. Number 9, they froze you in time. While you quietly outgrew their version, you were frozen in their frames. You melted the mold and moved on. They put you in a photo album and called it your future. Laugh at them now as the pages catch fire. My dear chosen ones, hear me loud and clear. They loved the version of you that made them comfortable. They clipped a snapshot, laminated it with their assumptions, and left it on repeat like a broken record. That frozen picture was convenient. It justified their superiority, it simplified their judgments, and it let them sleep at night, believing they'd done the work of knowing you. But convenience is a weak foundation for a life. While they stared at that stale image, you were busy becoming a time-lapse they could never predict. Ask yourself, how often did you feel the weight of other people's past of you? How many times did a glance carry the echo of an old mistake, an old rumor, an old version that no longer fit? Of course it stung. Of course it boxed you in. But chosen ones, remember this. Being reduced to a past they preferred is a sign you were dangerous to their story. When you evolve and they keep you on the shelf, it reveals more about them than it ever did about you. Think in pictures. They watched a single frame of your life and began composing plays around it. They mapped strategies to keep you predictable. They rehearsed roles that fit their comfortable narrative. Meanwhile, you were editing the footage, splicing in growth, rewinding through lessons, fast-forwarding through failures, and creating a version of yourself that couldn't be paused by nostalgia. When you step back into view, the contrast is seismic. Their rehearsed responses collapse because the actor has changed the script. Now, they're left fumbling. They reach for their old lines, and you don't respond in the predictable way they've practiced for years. It humiliates them because their sense of control depended on your immobility. Their arrogance required you to stay small. Their identity was propped up by the assumption that you would remain the caricature they drew. Your evolution detonates that scaffolding. Suddenly, the mirror they polished to admire themselves reflects their own stagnation. You might be asking, how did they not see it coming? They weren't looking for you to become anything beyond their comfort zone. They were watching to confirm a story, not to witness transformation. People who measure others by an outdated version are not observers. They are archivists of someone else's past. They file you away, and in that filing, they stop learning. That's their fatal error. You, on the other hand, treat life like a journal, not a museum. You add pages, you revise entries, and you dare to scribble in the margins. That is why your reveal hits like a thunderclap. Let's be practical. How do you respond when they call you by your old name? You don't apologize for growth. You don't explain your evolution to comfort their fragile map of reality. You demonstrate. You show up with evidence. Presence is the ultimate rebuttal. Your work, your new standards, your quiet accomplishments, these are the facts that make their frozen memory look laughable. The harder they cling to the past, the brighter you will shine in contrast. There's a cruel beauty in watching them attempt to reconcile memory with reality. They'll try to slot you back into roles you left years ago because change terrifies people who lack imagination. Their embarrassment is deep because it exposes their own refusal to evolve. They assumed the past could contain you, but the truth is, the past contained them. That's the sting. Their stagnant snapshot defined their standards, not yours. Your movement out of their frame reveals their static condition. This is where the power of being chosen shows up. You weren't appointed for comfort, you were selected for impact. Growth requires friction. Evolution requires leaving behind the versions that were no longer useful. You were meant to be uncomfortable for a while, so you could be unstoppable later. The past they cling to is proof that you were always moving, just beneath their radar. Now that your motion is visible, their worldview collapses under the weight of your forward progress. Chosen ones hold your head high when they try to freeze you again. Their attempt to reduce you is not a verdict. It's a confession about them. When a person is forced to choose between updating their understanding or looking foolish, many will cling to the old frame to avoid admitting they were wrong. Let their clinging be your fuel. Let their embarrassment become the soundtrack that underscores your ascent. Remember, you didn't merely grow, you outgrew their ability to recognize you. That is not a flaw, it is your strategic advantage. While they replayed the past, you built the future. When the reveal lands and their jaws drop, it won't be because you surprised them by chance. It will be because you planned, labored, and refused to be owned by history. Their frozen memory is now a relic. Your life is the motion picture, and it's only getting started. Stand in that reality, chosen ones. Let them keep their old photos. You carry the living archive, proof of progress, proof of grit, proof that the person they once knew is not the person who will define your legacy. Keep moving, keep evolving. Watch them try to catch up. And now, chosen ones, you can see it clearly. Every frozen memory, every underestimation, every outdated frame they tried to trap you in has collapsed under the weight of your evolution. The reveal wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about proving yourself right. You've outpaced their imagination, shattered their illusions, and claimed your place as the story they can no longer rewrite. If this message hit you, if you feel the truth of your own rise burning inside, then stand with us. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next drop, and drop the number 77 in the comments to declare you're ready to turn isolation into transformation. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder that their past is not a prison. It's the foundation of their power. Your support fuels the movement, chosen ones, and together we'll keep breaking the internet one revolution